Yes, this is ska. Original and indigenous. The music of guitar, saxophone, trumpet, bass, and drums.
One step beyond!
What's up, posers, and welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. And it is SKAUGUST. We are continuing our look back at the genre of ska and its many different versions. And this is the conclusion as well. We decided we're going to do a truncated version of SKAUGUST this year. And we're going to modify it for next year, too. So be on the lookout for that in 12 months. But
and we'll have to come back and check this again and see if we can remember what we were planning to do next year.
Yeah.
We will forget. It'll be August 1st, and we're like, what were we going to do for SKAUGUST?
I don't know. Just pick a record? No, so for this episode, Dylan, you were given free reign to choose any ska record you wanted us to talk about, and we will get into that in a little bit. Of course, if you go to patreon.com/punklautopod, that's where you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. And this is where I would ask you what we did last week, Dylan, but we didn't do anything last week together.
I don't know. What did you do? This is where I ask you, what did you do last week?
So I recorded another edition of the 21st Century Breakdown. This one is numbers 70 through 61, slowly chipping away at this series. But I think I've got a routine set up now where on the weeks that we plan on recording a producer-exclusive bonus audio, I'll do a solo audio. So I think it'll keep me a little bit more on time and maybe more engaged with like taking notes and working on notes actively instead of accidentally going a month before I'm like, oh, I got to make another one, you know. So yeah, the 21st Century Breakdown series continues. That's where I'm breaking down my top 100 favorite albums of the 21st century so far. And it's a lot of fun. I love doing them, and I get tons of great feedback every time I do one. So I'm ready for everyone to hear that one. So you can go check that one out. The reason why we didn't record together is we did a producer audio. That is for our $5 tier. That is a poll-determined bonus audio that the producers get. And what did we talk about?
We talked about an EP by the band All from 1988, and it's All Roy for Brez.
Yeah, we've covered All in the past. This was actually a Dave nomination. Dave Brown, he suggested it for the list of nominees because he filled in during that time period where we were choosing the years. So since Dave got to pick an album from that year, we said, hey, pick an EP from that year too while you're at it. So he put that in there and won. So it's pretty fun. Good conversation. I think we got pretty deep on that EP. More than I thought we would. Producers also get their names said on the show every single week, so let's shout them out. We've already mentioned them, but Dave Brown, writer of the newsletter Oklahoma Lefty. Thank you to Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Nerd Radio. Shout out to Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls, on hiatus currently while he's getting his computer fixed. And shout out to Zack Attack in Oregon. Thank you for listening and being a producer. And you can sign up at our $10 tier where you get to choose the album that we devote an entire episode to. One-time $10 donation. You choose it. We talk about it. All right, so let's get into it. SKAUGUST will continue. Last week we talked about Mustard Plug, and that was a third wave record. And today we're talking about a record from the year 1979, which makes it a two-tone record. So what is going on in the greater musical world of 1979?
So in 1979, we're a couple of years into punk rock. Our cutoff for the show has always been, 76, the beginning of the first Ramones record. So the punk explosion happens in 77. The UK pretty much decides, well, this is for a bunch of posers now, and we're all true artists, and we're going to do a bunch of weird shit. And so punk turns into post-punk pretty much immediately in 78. And kind of continues in that lane. Certainly there's US bands that were already doing arty stuff in the CBGB scene.
CBD?
CBGBs. ABC. I kind of looked at post-punk through two lenses. I have it listed as post-punk parentheses, fun, and post-punk, parentheses, bummer. On the fun side, we've got Drums and Wires by XTC. We've got Fear of Music by The Talking Heads. Entertainment by Gang of Four. The B-52 self-titled record. Duty Now for the Future by the Devo. Some pretty big name stuff.
Mm-hmm.
On the bummer side, Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. Three Imaginary Boys by The Cure. Probably more fun than most of the other Cure stuff that they would do following that record, but feels like kind of more of a bummer band.
Yeah.
Wires 154, a record I enjoy. I'm not saying bummer is necessarily a bad thing, but it is certainly not the most fun music. We've got Metal Box by Pill, two fall records in 79. They did Live at the Witch Trials and Dragnet. Join Hands, the second Susie and the Banshees LP.
Rough. Very
Not my
rough.
favorite. Pretty rough record.
Yeah. The post-punk is kind of one of the more dominant punk sounds at the time, actually. Though there's a couple things that you would still fit under the original punk sound umbrella.
Yeah, and there's big stuff even. You know, there are certainly bands like The Clash, who put out London Calling, which is a double album and kind of has its genre excursions, and they're definitely stretching the definition of what it means to be a punk band, but still has that core true punk Clash sound, you know? The Damned put out Machine Gun Etiquette, their third and my favorite of their records. Stiff Little Fingers put out Inflammable Material, I think an overlooked classic. The Buzzcocks put out Different Kind of Tension. We've got a couple records by the Dickies. We've got Cast of Thousands by the Adverts.
Yeah, I mean, London Calling is, like, massive. That is a huge record. It sold well. It's critically and culturally an important album. So, yeah, that's probably, out of everything we've mentioned so far, it might be the biggest album that, you know, there is. I guess Unknown Pleasures might be... Yeah, Unknown Pleasures is probably bigger and more important than London Calling, but they're very close. That's like 1A, 1B type stuff there.
Yeah. The more working class side of punk continues to develop its sound and maintains a true punk sound, I feel like. We've got another kind of blues coming out by UK Subs, some Angelic Upstarts, some Sham 69. So, Oi is a thing. I'm not the biggest Oi head. I can't tell you a whole lot about its history, but certainly it is the right time period for that.
Is there any anarcho punk at this time? I don't know if you pulled anything.
There
I
is.
know. Is it just an off
down
year for
here.
Crass?
Yeah, it's pretty much 2 Crass records and a Poison Girls records and a bunch of stuff I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, anarcho punk's definitely going by this point. Hardcore is kind of just barely kicking off in the US. The only LP that really fits that genre is The Germs GI. But we've got a couple of EPs. Black Flag put out Nervous Breakdown, and the Misfits put out Horror Business and The Night of the Living Dead. So 2 Misfits EPs.
Yeah, we have... This is really like where the American hardcore boom is like getting ready to start. Germs is, definitely the predecessor. And they started a lot earlier too, but Germs definitely inspired bands like Black Flag to exist.
And we've got, there's kind of other little things going on. Kind of notable to me. We've got a lot of power pop and sort of still some mod rock revival stuff going on. The Jam put out Setting Suns. The Undertones did their self-titled record. Joe Jackson released Look Sharp, and then I think immediately quit doing power pop. The Beat, not the English Beat, but the Paul Collins Band. They have their self-titled record in 79 as well. And then getting further out there into the art rock world, the more experimental side of punk, it's a pretty significant year. We've got records by This Heat, The Slits, The Raincoats, Swell Maps, Magazine, Pure Ubu, The Stranglers, Tom Verlaine's doing his solo stuff, post-television, Gary Newman's first record? Maybe not first, but it's funny how, like I said, kind of at the top, like, the UK tried to move past punk so fast. Like, they this is this massive fad, and now we're all going to do something different. And it's not strictly the UK. There is a tendency in the US as well to go in that arty direction. And I think that that's where a lot of people kind of get the, oh, is punk a sound or is it an attitude kind of conversation starter from. That when you really consider that the CBGB scene, and not even just the CBGB scene, you go look at Athens, you go look at Ohio, it's pretty LA stuff going on. LA. I mean, as much as LA is where hardcore really starts and certainly attracts a dumb kid to punk music in the United States and really keeps the genre grounded, it still has its weirdos, You go
the
down
Screamers.
to Pedro and you got the Minutemen starting. X are kind of big freaks in their own way. They're just playing a little bit more conventional music.
Yeah. They are punks on how they live.
Yeah.
They just happen to play like twangy rockabilly punk. Which in a way is kind of punk too. Because they're just like, we like this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a regressive mentality too.
Yeah. Which punk in general kind of is too. That's a throwback to like early 60s rock and roll, Before everybody in the 70s is like, we have to have an organ player and play prog,
Yeah.
So those are all from 1979, and I guess we could talk about the stuff that you almost selected. You were not restricted to a year for this, so you could choose really something ska from any time period. So what did you almost pick for us there?
So I sent you all of my selections, and the first one that you responded to was Cherry Poppin' Daddies, and you said, ew.
Why would you pick that? It's not going to be good.
Mostly for the laughs, I think. It jumped out to me. I was like, oh, there's a Cherry Poppin' Daddies record. Rapid City Muscle Car 1994 was the record that particularly jumped out to me that I submitted to you. And I honestly didn't really consider it, but I wanted to have a fourth thing to say. And yeah, like I said, I thought it'd be funny. But it also did bring up for me, and where it was the most interesting to me, is that's probably the best example, the best band to pick to talk about how swing revival is related to the third wave ska movement. That is the Cherry Poppin' Daddies record. Ironically, it does not have Zoot Suit Riot on it. That was just a single that got put on a compilation later. But no, I didn't consider that one too seriously. Though it did make me think there's some potential for a birthday spanking.
Oh, no. Yeah, I fed you an idea. I was curious because I was like, I don't know that I've ever even seen the album cover that the song Zoot Suit Riot comes from. And I'm looking at it now. I feel like I've never seen this cover before. This is the 20th anniversary edition, so I don't know if there's like a different cover. Nope, it's not different. I don't think I ever saw that CD in stores anywhere. That is wild.
Well, yeah, because it's not even a real record. It's like a bunch of songs from other records.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a comp.
Their big record is not a record?
Yeah, their biggest song is the title of their greatest hits album, which for them is that song and literally nothing else. So they just put a bunch of their other favorite songs on there.
That's wild. Where does that song come from? Was that just a single that they had? That is weird. Or do you think they wrote it for that comp, maybe? Weird.
I also considered the Bruce Lee band's Everything Will Be Alright, My Friend from 2014. It's the comeback the Lee band record. They had an EP that year as well. I think it's a really good one. It is probably the latest ska record I would really consider for the show. Since we were doing the general overall ska charts, I was just kind of keeping to our 10-year rule. So I didn't really look into any new tone stuff, though not much of it really would have jumped out to me to consider for the show. But Bruce Lee Band certainly has enough legacy, and that comeback record is a pretty significant record.
It's a great record. It kicks off a interest in ska again from Mike Park. He'd done so much like singer-songwriter stuff for a while leading up to that. And yeah, it was a throwback to him doing the Bruce Lee band again, but they did quite a few records since that one. And even the Chinkies got back together to do like one EP. So it's an important record for Mike Park's ska career in the 2010s.
Yeah. It's got a little bit too much Rosenstockism, maybe. But
Yeah.
I think Mike Park still kind of steers the ship.
I know we're real big Jeff Rosenstock haters, but why does everyone seem to love him? That's the thing that I'm hung up on now. I find him very annoying in his music and in how he acts online. I don't know about in person. I don't know him at all, but still.
Around the year where all of the merch cuts and dialogue was going around, and that record that came out that year and the tour that he was on for that year, I was seeing a few people online who were kind of like, this guy needs to grow up some. Like, and that was, I think that was coming from the perspective of someone who was a fan, who was like, I really enjoyed his records kind of up to a certain point, and just was like, I don't know, this like golden retriever kind of energy is tiring.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like anytime someone is like this, you've got to love me kind of personality comes around, and then like all these people do love him. It's just people that you respect too, where you're like,
which,
what do you see in this guy? To
his credit, a lot of people who I respect and like him. So I think he passes, the vibe check.
Yeah. You know what? It kind of reminds me of those guys in college. Now that I think about it, those like really like they're adults with ADHD is what they are. They're the hyperactive silly guy who's just like, there's nothing like actively wrong with him, but God, that energy is so draining. Like I cannot be around it that long.
They're all pushing 40 now and are bartenders. They're still this way.
I'm cutting this out, but Jake and George, that's who I'm thinking of the most from Montreat. I don't even know what the fuck those guys are doing now, but anyway.
And lastly, I was considering a Desmond Decker record from 1969. This is Desmond Decker. It's kind of up in the air on what the most important Desmond Decker record is. I think The Israelites is one of the more well-known. It might be the one. It is his first proper solo record, but his 67 record with the Aces, 007 Shantytown, is also possibly the one. So I kind of feel like there's like 3 or 4 possible Desmond Decker records to pick from. And this was just the one that was like the one that jumped out to me. I felt like the definitive statement of its title, this is Desmond Decker, kind of like begs the question, is this Desmond Decker? I listened to the Israelites like 2 months ago, and I think it's a good record, but it's not amazing.
Yeah, Desmond is one of those guys that I'm like, oh, he's great. He's really good. He's not my favorite of those guys, though.
Yeah.
Like, I like Jimmy Cliff, and I like Toots and the Maytals a lot more than I like Desmond Decker. But he's up there,
And Desmond Decker, maybe more true ska than Jimmy Cliff or Toots.
Yeah.
So, certainly a case to be made for him.
I think he started earlier, too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
definitely good. Well, the Maytals started in the early 60s. I mean, really traditional ska.
Yeah, just the stuff that they are most known for now is like the original, reggae boom, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Much more into the rocksteady era.
And Jimmy Cliff has always had a heavy like R&B and soul influence on his music, too. So, yeah. I guess then it would be like, what, Prince Buster and like...
yeah.
There's a lot more, too. I'm blanking currently on, but Prince Far Eye. Let's get another record you did choose for us to talk about. So, you were told to pick a ska record, and you selected The Specials by The Specials. Stats on the band. They formed in 1977, and they were from Coventry, England. This was released October 19th, 1979 on Two Tone Records in the UK and on Chrysalis Records throughout the rest of the world. This is the band's debut full-length, and the personnel on this album is Horace Panter on bass, John Bradbury on drums, Linval Golding on guitar, Roddy Byers, a.k.a. I think it's Radioactive Roddy, or Roddy Radioactive, on guitar, Dick Cuthell on horns, Rico Rodriguez on trombone, Jerry Dahmers on organ, Neville Staple on vocals, and Terry Hall on vocals. And we have some backing vocals on this record by Chrissy Hind on Nightclub of the Pretenders. And it was produced by Elvis Costello and engineered by Dave Jordan. So, what made you choose the Specials self-titled record?
Well, I mean, it's right there at the top of the list. I mean, it's one of the biggest, most important ska records of all time.
Yeah.
Arguably, the biggest ska record of all time. Could be some debate about that.
Yeah, there could be a debate there, but I don't know that I could think of anyone else that'd be bigger. Maybe something from the third wave might technically be bigger based on units sold.
Yeah, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
That might be the other one, but yeah. I don't think you get the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones without this record, though.
Not at all. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Which, you don't get the Specials without Desmond Decker, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of, I think, cultural importance and critical reception, this is a big record. It's an iconic record. It is recognizable. It is one of a handful of ska records that non-ska fans would know, or would know songs from it, would know who this band is. So, yeah, there's so much significance to this band that we should have done them on SKAUGUST by now. So it was easily the most obvious choice of all the records that I did consider. My other kind of limiting factor, I wanted to avoid a 90s ska record. I did consider that Cherry Poppin' Daddies record, and like I said, that swing revival side of the band would have given that a different dimension to talk about within the context of 90s ska, and we've been in the 90s kind of a lot lately, so I was leaning away from that decade in general. So, yeah, I mean, it's the obvious choice. A little safe choice, even.
Yeah, we've definitely said, probably numerous times during SKAUGUST, we're like, we should do that Specials record. That should be one we do. I mean, it's an important record. It's absolutely, you're right, one of the most important records for ska in history, and it's also one of the most important records for connecting ska to punk music. So yeah, it has to be done at some point. It needs to be discussed, and I always felt like we would eventually get to it. You just finally pulled the trigger on it, I guess, which makes sense. If you're gonna go with a two-tone band, the only other one we haven't touched yet is Madness, and we almost did, because when we initially were doing last week's episode, when I wanted to do the year format, and I pulled the year and I looked at everything that came out that year that was ska or even like reggae adjacent just to see what there was. It was a really weak year for it. It was sometime in the 80s, and it was like the third or fourth Madness record, and it was like not their biggest album, and it was probably barely a ska record too if we listened to it. So we could have done a Madness one last week, but we went with the overall approach, and now maybe I'm wondering if I should have picked that Madness record after my...
We'll get there eventually. I mean, there's...
Yeah. I mean, there will be a point where there's nothing to choose from except maybe a Madness record. So, yeah. Especially if we do the year route like next time. So,
yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Personal experience with the Specials. I'll go first. I've found them when I was doing my dive into ska in two-tone specifically. Like, it wasn't very hard to get into them because they're just so omnipresent when it comes to lists of ska bands. So I think I got really into the English beat first, but the Specials were like right behind, and I'd heard some of the songs before already. It was just a case of like, I should listen to the LP. So this is a record that I've heard like plenty of times. I've heard this record a lot. I don't know exactly how many times I would have listened to it, but I've probably heard at least 10 times. It's that big of a record. It's an important album, and I always thought it was a good record. I don't know how much time you've spent with them, but I also imagine you probably heard it a bunch of times too.
Yeah, I mean, my experience with them is pretty much the same as yours. It was kind of like I mean, like I said, they're such a big band that you will come across them without even trying to get into ska.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a given that I would hear them, but I feel like my own personal experience with them and introduction to them was just like, here's 40 bands that you're gonna now listen to, when I was a teenager. So I can't pinpoint the first time I heard the Specials. I don't think the first time I heard the Specials, they made a really significant impact on me. And it would take a little while, I think, for the two-tone sound in general to interest me. I got more into that, I think, in college. But I've certainly listened to those first two Specials records off and on for all of my adult life. I've just checked in on them from time to time. And they were never my two-tone band. They've never been a band that I reach for super often. So I think when I've gone back to that sound, there's bands like The Beat and The Selector even, with their first record, where I'm just like, that does something really specific that I want, and I'll go to those bands for two-tone. So the Specials is kind of my, honestly, controversial take. They're my third favorite two-tone band. Now, the real question is how much of a gap is there between third place and the fourth place default seating that goes to Madness?
Yeah.
That's up in the air. I don't know. I haven't spent nearly as much time with Madness as I have the Specials.
Yeah, I mean, the Madness record that I've listened to the most is One Step Beyond, which is their most two-tone record. They go to new wave, very quickly. They kind of drop a lot of the two-tone stuff. I think The Beat actually melded new wave and two-tone. Well, technically two-tone is new wave and reggae kind of mixed together. But The Beat kind of thread that needle a little better, of being poppy and radio friendly.
Yeah.
Where the Selector and the Specials weren't really. And Madness did too, but they were just and we stopped being a ska band.
Yeah.
Do Big House, in the middle of our street, Our House, not Big House. Big House is the Audio Adrenaline song with lots and lots of food to eat.
Yeah.
But yes, Our House. The Queen's favorite song.
Yeah.
And Madness performed on the roof of Buckingham Palace for the Queen. It's man, y'all are not punk right now.
Do you think?
But yeah.
Do you think the Queen made John Lydon listen to that Madness song with her when he would
probably?
meet with her?
Yeah.
I love
this song.
He's biting his tongue the whole time. There is truly something special about the Specials.
Mm-hmm.
While I would say they're not my two-tone band, they're not the one I reshoot, they have such an undeniable coolness to them that gives them this edge. It really just makes me come back to them, periodically at least. I love watching live clips of them because they look fucking cool as hell. Super fun band to watch. They've got a visual that's just killer. And really, they are probably the exemplary two-tone, black and white, suits and sunglasses, checkerboard band.
Yeah.
They
invented it
perfectly. They invented it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they invented it. And because, the English Beat are, pink is, one of their colors. It's you're not even doing the checkerboard the same way that... they have some checkerboard stuff, but...
And they got the Beat Girl,
Yeah. The Beat Girl is a good...
iconography.
Yeah, she fits right alongside the Specials guy. Yeah. Did Madness have a little funny little person? I don't know.
They do the Wrangler on the album cover, but
yeah. And the Selector embraced the checkerboard. The checkerboard is their their mascot. They don't have necessarily a cartoon character, but you look at a Selector record and go, that's a ska record. In fact, I bought that first Selector record never hearing the band just because I saw the album cover. I was like, that's a ska record. I'm buying this.
Yeah. But yeah, so I figured this is the perfect opportunity. I have checked in on the Specials off and on throughout my life and always appreciated them. But I felt like this was a good opportunity to say, okay, here is my definitive statement on the Specials' first record. This is my final verdict I don't really see myself reappraising it ever. You know, it might be 10 years before I am like, okay, maybe my opinion of this record has changed. But I just don't see it happening. Because I'm already so familiar with it. So just to, like, sit down with it with such an intention of listening to it critically, I would say I have figured out some things about the record.
This one is for all the bouncers. Big, big monkey man.
So we were talking a little bit of our four horsemen of the ska apocalypse for the two-tone movement. What else is going on in 1979 in ska?
So there's like one other two-tone record, and it's One Step Beyond by Madness.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some ska influences on The Clash. London Calling certainly has ska songs on it and ska influences. XTC were definitely doing a lot that was influenced by ska, or at least similar to ska.
You don't have them here, but I would say the Slits also have a lot of ska in their music too.
Yeah, the Slits definitely have some reggae and ska influence as well. And reggae is pretty big throughout the 70s. So there's other things going on that are kind of related to that as well, and I think because reggae is truly a subgenre of ska, it fits under the ska umbrella. But Brigada de Blanc by The Police came out in 79, which is a really fun record. The Wailers put out a record called Survival. Serge Gainsbourg has a full-on pop reggae record. Weirdly.
Weird. I would not expect that.
It sounds like what you think. I mean, you know what Serge Gainsbourg's voice sounds like. It's just him doing that over very mediocre pop reggae. Boney M's got a lot of Caribbean influences. There's records from Black Uhuru, Steel Pulse, Peter Tosh. Dub has a lot going on as well. Dub as a genre kind of peaks in 78 with probably the most records. And then 79 is a little bit continuing that sound. Eventually that develops into dance hall. The way that music evolves throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s in Jamaica is really interesting, and how much of it really just comes from ska. And it's just like, well, we changed this thing rhythmically and now it's a new genre. Or we changed this production approach and now it's dub, you know? There's a lot of Prince Far Eye, Prince Jammy, Mikey Dread records.
No Lee Scratch Perry?
I didn't see any, actually, weirdly, in 79.
Because he's like usually all over every year. You know?
Yeah.
Or like Scientist. That's another one.
Yeah, not really any Scientist stuff either.
Huh.
He's a lot more active in the 80s, too.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, since this record came out on Two-Tone Records, this is the source for the other ska records to talk about. So in 1979, Two-Tone doesn't release any more LPs. It's all just singles. But they did release The Prince by Madness, On My Radio by The Selector, and Tears of a Clown by The Beat. And that's all four of them. One Step Beyond's not a two-tone album, which is funny. But they were a two-tone band. They were on that first year of two-tone, I guess. And yeah, they all have something that year. So, very important label for the sound to even exist. All right, let's do some of the story. So, Jerry Dammers was from Coventry, England, which was one of the automotive capitals of the UK. They were hit really hard during the Blitz during World War II. Those factories were destroyed, but then they rebuilt, and there was an upswing, in the 50s of like, oh yes, things are getting better again. But then the UK went through some very hard times economically, and so then that industry kind of died again in the UK. This part of England is also home to many Caribbean immigrants, and including a notable Jamaican community. And this is where Jerry Dahmers was introduced to ska. And he began playing in bands at the age of 15, including his first band, Gristle, with Future Specials member Roddy Byers. He also met Horace Panter in college, and they bonded over their love of ska. So the group is initially formed by Jerry Dahmers, Linval Golding, Horace Panter, vocalist Tim Strickland, and drummer Silverton Hutchinson. And not long after forming, they brought in Terry Hall to replace Tim Strickland on vocals. And they actually sniped him from another band. He was singing in another band, and they liked him enough that they were like, come sing in our band. And he was like, okay. And the band was originally formed under the name The Automatics, and then later to the Coventry Automatics. And this is when Roddy Byers would join as their second guitarist prior to recording their first demo. They would then change their name again to The Special, aka The Automatics, after a band called The Automatics signed to Island Records. They obviously were like, that's too much of a name, so they just shortened it to The Special, aka, and then shortened it again to The Specials. So Joe Strummer had seen them live and invited them to open for The Clash on their On Parole tour. And this got the Specials more public attention than they had received prior, and they wound up sharing management with The Clash for a little period after this. On this tour, this is where Neville Staple became a member of the band after serving as their roadie, and he had a version of Monkey Man, which is the Toots and the Maytals song, that they liked and said, join our band. In 1979, they added their drummer, John Bradbury, who was replacing Silverton Hutchinson. And they are considered the first two-tone band. They mix traditional ska and reggae with punk music. The fashion is actually what they claim is what the two-tone meant. It meant that the suits that they were really big fans of were two-toned suits. They had two different colors in them. They embraced this mod fashion, lots of suits, lots of pork pie hats. And they were an explicitly anti-racist band. The two-tone aspect also applied to the racial configuration of the band. They were black and white musicians working together. That's where the black and white comes from in the ska checkerboard pattern. They would do shows where literal Nazis would show up, and they would either bait them, talk shit to them, or physically confront them and kick them out of the venue. Golding was a victim of two separate racist attacks, with the second nearly killing him after a broken bottle slashed his jugular. And he survived, obviously. But still, pretty brutal stuff. Dahmers would form his own record label called Two Tone Records and released the first Specials single, Gangsters, with the B-side was The Selector by The Selector. And it would sell well enough that they would get distribution through Rough Trade Records. John Peel would get a hold of the single and play it on his radio show, and this caused the majors to start paying attention to them and trying to sign them. So the Specials were willing to sign to a major label, but they did have one rule, is that whoever would sign them would also have to establish Two Tone as its own sub-label, and they would be allowed to release albums on Two Tone without artists being signed to the main label. So basically they were just like, we want handshake deals. We like this band, you come do a single. We don't have to worry about contract. I'm sure there's like a contract for the record on who gets paid and all that kind of stuff, but as far as like putting out a record on Two Tone did not mean you were signed to the major. And Chrysalis was the record label who agreed to this. So Two Tone became a sub-label of Chrysalis, and they would release it internationally for them. This record was produced by Elvis Costello, and this, as far as I can tell, might be the first album he produced. He might have some hand in producing on his own records, but at this stage, he hadn't done anyone else's record. And he said he wanted to capture their live energy in studio, and began seeing them live as many times as possible. So basically, any chance he got, he would go see them live, I guess just to take notes and be like, all right, this works, let's do this. And he said his goal was to get them down in the studio and record them in their rawest form before another producer would get a hold of them and screw them up by perfecting things that didn't need to be perfected. I'm pretty sure that's the exact same thing he said about the Pogues when he produced them too. It was like, I got to get them in studio before somebody else does and messes them up. This was recorded with engineer Dave Jordan, who had the year before been an engineer on the Rolling Stones' Some Girls. And he would later go on to do work with the Pogues extensively. A number of these songs are covers. A Message to You, Rudy is a Dandy Livingstone song. Do the Dog. Oh, I don't have that one. I don't remember what that one is. Anyway. Too Hot is a Prince Buster song. Monkey Man is a Toots and the Maytals song. And you're wondering now, is a song written by someone else, but the Scotalites made it famous? And they are all songs made famous by original ska and reggae artists. The horn players are Dick Cuthill and Rico Rodriguez. They were brought in specifically for this album, but would not be considered members of the band until the second Specials record. Interestingly, Rico Rodriguez was the original horn player on the original Dandy Livingstone version of A Message to You, Rudy 15 years earlier. So I wonder if he was brought in specifically because he was that guy, or if that was a funny accident. Message to You, Rudy was released as a single with Nightclub as the B-side, yet Too Much Too Young became their first number 1 single, and the album hit number 4 on the UK Albums Chart. Album reviews are mixed at the time, but they have since been regarded as one of the greatest albums of all time, so it's been retroactively praised, and it's a landmark for the ska genre. And depending on which version of the album you're listening to determines where the song Gangsters appears in the track listing. It is not part of the original UK pressing of the album, but it was added to international releases. Some place it in the middle of the album, some put it at the end. The version on Spotify puts Gangsters first, which, personally, I disagree with. You shouldn't have done that. A Message to You, Rudy is supposed to be the first song on the record. I don't know why they did that, but... And this album would eventually be included in the 1001 albums to hear before you die. Alright, so a lot of pieces of information there, but...
Do the Dog is credited to Rufus Thomas. I'm not sure exactly what it's a cover of. I'd have to look at the songs to figure it out. But The Dog, I think, is the song by Rufus Thomas that they're covering, rearranging. It is a part of Rufus Thomas's series of dog songs. The Dog, Walking the Dog, Somebody Stole My Dog, and Can Your Monkey Do the Dog?
That kind of fits, because there's the line in the song, where, like, not the monkey, in the middle of the song.
Which fits within his oeuvre of, he's also got a record called Do the Funky Chicken.
So he's going with the Chubby Checker approach to music, of just like, I'm going to do the same thing 100 times.
Yeah, that was... It worked.
The dog does the monster mash.
That's more of a rhythm and blues Southern soul song, so they're just doing it. I couldn't find any, did any ska artists cover it, so I think it's just a soul song that they did a cover of, but...
Yeah.
You've done too much too young. Now you're married with a kid when you could be having fun with me. You've done too much too young. Now you're married with a son when you should be having fun with me. We don't want no more picnic. Ain't he cute? No, he ain't. He's just another burden on the welfare state. You've done too much too young. Now you're married with a kid when you could be having fun with me. Call me immature, call me a poser. I'd love to spread manure in your bed of roses. Don't wanna be rich, don't wanna be famous, but I'd really hate to have the same name as you.
All right, so revisiting it, what did you think of the record?
Now I'm wondering, which version did I listen to? Which track order did I listen to?
I mean, if you listen to it on Spotify, you probably listened to the one with Gangster first. That's the only one on Spotify. I mean, maybe if you had a direct link to a different one, but...
If you search on Spotify, you can go, it pulls up the deluxe version. That's definitely the one I listened to.
Yeah.
And I agree, Gangsters should not be first.
No. I get why they did it. It was the single before the LP. I get it, but it's not on the LP. That's the part. And
It's a bonus track that you put on the deluxe version. It should be at the end.
yeah. And I'm even fine with the way they, a lot of times that happens. A record comes over from the UK into the US and they like reorder the record. Whatever. If you want to do that, it's fine. But yeah, you shouldn't put it in front of A Message to You, Rudy, because that's the perfect start to the record.
If you follow the link from Rate Your Music, there's the Specials 2002 remaster. That does have a message to you, Rudy, at the top.
You know what's really annoying about Spotify? It's mainly on digital, or not digital, but on mobile, is that you can't see the other versions of records.
Yeah.
But if you know to search for it, I think you can search directly, but it's also kind of tough to do because they're just called the Specials, and the album's just called the Specials. I think on a computer, you can go down and like look at, like on the actual album page, if you go down the corner, I think there's like other versions you can click on, and that's sometimes how you can find it. But yeah, kind of annoying.
Yeah, the consistency of the user experience of Spotify across platforms is irritating.
Yeah, I found it on mobile. If you search for the album title and go under albums,
yeah,
you can find it as 2002 remaster. So anyway,
it's there.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to find though. It's not on the artist page. That's the annoying part.
Yeah, the deluxe version, it's just got a bunch of live. The whole like second disc is just live tracks. So revisiting this record, like I said, they aren't my two-tone band. They're not the first one I reach for. This record is one of the best records that I can think of that I have a lot of complaints about. And it's little things that add up to the overall experience of listening to the record. And I've always thought, like, there's something about this record that I don't like, that it doesn't grab me. But I look at the track listing and I think, well, I know all of these songs.
Yeah.
So it's not the individual songs. The songs themselves individually, I think, work very well. I think they're great songs. But the album as a whole, and maybe it's the Specials discography as a whole, kind of muddies the picture too, because More Specials, the second album, is definitely not as good. But listening to this one, which is usually the one that I'm going to reach for when I do go listen to the Specials, I always come away from it a little cold, and I could never really pinpoint what it is, but I think it hit me this time. The biggest issue is probably ultimately flow. It's a sequencing kind of song flow issue, where there's a lot of slow songs on here, which is not uncommon for ska, especially if you're going back to traditional ska. I've listened to plenty of, older ska records that have a lot of slow songs on them that I think are good, and I think they're really enjoyable. Not many that I would say are better than this record, so a point, for this record and for what it was doing. But I found myself this time listening to it, getting like halfway through each slow song and being like, this is dragging. If I took this song out of the context of listening to the record and listened to it, I wouldn't complain about the length or the flow or the energy level of the song. I would say, yeah, it's a slow song. Nothing wrong with that. But it's such a, you keep hitting these slow songs, and I don't think it's necessarily like every other song, but there are just so many moments where you hit a slower song on this record, and it's like, I'm out of the groove now. Like, I'm just not locked in anymore. I'm now distracted thinking about something else because the energy level has dropped dramatically. I don't know. I didn't play around with trying to resequence the record or anything to make it flow better. And it might be that there's just too many slow songs for that to really be possible. Because there are a lot of slow songs on the record.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I kind of get what you mean about the album as a whole. There is something about it that prevents it from being a perfect record. It's not a perfect record. Yet it's one of those records where I'm like, is this the best not perfect record? It's one of those kind of records where it's I don't know. We'll do our ratings at the end, but it's one of those records that has a lot of flaws in it that to me still doesn't take away from the record. It's strange. It's a weird listening experience, but each song individually I think are great. So yeah, I kind of see what you're saying there. There is something weird about this album. And maybe why I did tend to gravitate more towards the beat, because I think they sequence their records perfectly, I think the first Madness record is sequenced really well too. The Selector kind of have the same problem, I think, that the Specials do too. Maybe that's because the Selector did this a lot too. Like, is it too many covers and interpolations to really like create a groove that works consistently across the album? Because the Selector did a bunch of covers on that first record too. The Beat did, but like not as many covers. So I don't know. I don't know. I know what you mean, and it's really hard to even like pinpoint exactly what the problem is.
And like, I don't think it's even, like I said, like, it's not like, oh, we got a fast song, oh, we got a slow song, oh, we got a fast song, oh, we got a slow song. You know, it's not back and forth. And in fact, like, the overall energy level of the record is more consistently lower energy, slower songs on the A side, or the front half of the record, and more consistent, fun, fast songs on the B side. Because, like, I think when you hit, I mean, not quite on the B side, but towards the end of the A side, when you hit Concrete Jungle, I'm like, oh, thank God, there's the energy. And then the B side starts off with Monkey Man, and that's a super fun song. B side's got Little Bitch, it's got Too Much Too Young. Like, there's a lot of energy on the back half. Do the Dog is on the A side. It starts appropriately with a message to you, Rudy. Like, there's just kind of something in between. I think that stretch from It's Up to You, Nightclub, Doesn't Make It All Right. Those 3 songs in a row particularly kind of drag. And I think the B-side kind of has a similar little bit of, like, Stupid Marriage is on there, and it's right next to Too Much Too Young. And it's like, honestly, you could have just left Stupid Marriage off and just had Too Much Too Young. Because they both have very similar lyrical themes.
Yeah, and Stupid Marriage is like one of my least favorite songs on the whole record too.
Like, it's kind of slow and boring. And Too Much Too Young is great in comparison.
Yeah, Too Much Too Young is excellent. Like, that's one of the strongest songs on the record to me. Yeah, there's something, I'm like looking at this track list and I'm like, all right, Message to You, Rudy is like an all-time great song. Like, that song is phenomenal. It's a cover, yes, phenomenal song. Their version, they own it. It's theirs. Like, yes, this is a who was the one who did this one? A Dandy Livingstone song? Nah. The Specials own it. They transformed it enough to the point where it's theirs, Phenomenal song, all-time greater. That's a track 1, side 1, amazing song. And then they immediately do the Dog, which I find very grating. It's a faster, upbeat song, so they're keeping the energy up, but it's also like weird, has that spoken bit in the song that I find obnoxious.
It's also 2 minutes long, though, so for me, it just doesn't linger.
Yeah.
Like, because It's Up to You and Nightclub aren't even necessarily slow songs, but they're not the most memorable, and Doesn't Make It All Right, I think, is a good song, even. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of two not super memorable songs, and then, like, a good but slow song.
Yeah.
I just kind of lose that momentum of the record that starts pretty strong for me.
It Doesn't Make It All Right has a great chorus. I love that one. That's a really fun song. But you're right, it is a slow song after. They're not slow, but yeah. Like, Nightclub's actually a pretty upbeat song.
Yeah.
Fast song. Nightclub's better than if It's Up to You. Yeah. But it's also like, I don't remember it as strongly. Yeah, Concrete Jungle, that's a fun upbeat song. That's bringing in that punkness to it. That's a good one.
Nightclub 2 also feels like it sounds like a fast Scotalites song.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a two-tone song.
Right, yeah. It also has, like, there's, like, too many, like, I wouldn't call them skits, but they have these, like, scenarios that they set up on this record. And Nightclub is the one where it sounds like it's in a nightclub.
Yeah.
And the way they achieved that was they got the Specials. Elvis Costello brought the Specials in, got them liquored up, brought in all their friends, turned off the lights, and were like, pretend you're in a nightclub. And that's how they did it in the studio. And yeah, I think the sounds kind of messed with that one for me. Too Hot is a slow song, but I don't mind it. Maybe because it's a cover, And so they put Too Hot between 2 fast songs. Concrete Jungle and A Monkey Man are both very fast songs. Monkey Man is a standout track to me, too, on the record. Very fun. Yeah, I mean, Dawning of a New Era is really fun. But then to me, then you hit Blank Expression and Stupid Marriage, and those two, I'm just like, they're fine. They're good songs, but not amazing.
Yeah.
And then Too Much Too Young, Little Bitch, and You're Wondering Now.
Great closing. I think the album ends really strong, because You're Wondering Now is...
It's phenomenal. I love that song.
A slow, quiet song.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, like... It's like sitting on the dock of the bay. It's just so peaceful. And, like, pretty. It's a great closer. And you have, Too Much Too Young, Little Bitch, You're Wondering Now. Those 3 songs in a row, probably the best run of songs on the record. So I think the B-side, it ends so much stronger than the record starts that helps it. But there's just enough stuff on here that I'm like, there are these amazing peaks on here, but I don't care enough about what's going on in between. I think that the production and mix of the record doesn't really help. Unfortunately, I understand Elvis Costello's impulse to capture that live energy, and I think there are times where he does. The most upbeat stuff, particularly, benefits from having a rawness. I think a lot of the slower stuff doesn't. I think that stuff could have been cleaned up and tightened up a little bit more, produced a little bit more. I think the mix is odd. I mean, I'm never gonna completely trash a record because of its mix. I don't think I can tolerate a lot of bad mixing.
But you know, that Pogues record that Elvis Costello did also had a weird mix too.
Yeah. There's just choices I wouldn't make.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of it boils down to for me, what really feels the most off in the mix is how distant the drums feel, but how close the bass feels. The balance is just not right, especially thrown off when it's so wide between the two pieces of the rhythm section. Your bass and your drums really benefit from being close to each other in energy and volume, and they're not. The bass sounds like it sounds like you're sitting in the room with somebody playing bass, and the drums sound like somebody playing drums in the other room. So it causes this incongruity. You know, it feels disjointed because of that. And I think that really adds to the duller, slower moments. It drags them down more.
Does this feel like a record that you could tell there's 2 guitar players on it?
Not really.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm sure I don't know what they're doing. Because they're not both upstroking, right? Is it a case of maybe one does leads and one continues the upstrokes, and that's kind of really what they're doing? Or is this a case of like, no, you play on this one, I'll play on the next one, you know, that kind of thing, like in the studio, where it's like there's 2 guitarists, but they're not both playing on the same songs? I don't know.
Yeah, and in terms of ska guitar playing, the Specials are probably the least interesting classic ska bands.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, like, the thing that really stands out is the vocals, really. Like, that's kind of the main thing that I feel like drives most of these songs. I mean, the rhythm, I guess, too, because that's the nature of ska. But yeah, the guitar is just kind of, it's just kind of like there. It's not nearly as interesting as what the contemporaries are doing, guitar-wise. Because they're not that tight, either.
Yeah.
They're kind of sloppy.
Yeah. And that's, like, to me, ska guitar is so hard to play the simple stuff, and I think they're just barely doing it. Like, I listen to the Specials playing those upstrokes, their ska guitar, and I'm like, okay, I can do that. I listen to Dave Wakeling, I can't do that.
No. And there's 2 guitars in the beat, too, and I feel like you can tell with that.
Yeah.
With that band. One of the Fine Young Cannibals, I can't remember which one. Andy Cox, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is so weird. I feel like we're being like really negative on this record, but I don't think it's not a bad record. I think it's a great record. I think it's an all-timer even. It's just funny how it's like maybe these flaws are what makes it so special. No pun intended. I don't know, cuz I
think what makes it so special are the great songs and the dynamic of the band And the vocals are standout. They're very interesting voices. And they're doing really interesting things, and they're singing music that is not popular at this time. Because even though reggae is really popular, by the late 70s, it's so poppy.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is true 60s ska.
It is funny that, like, this two-tone movement happens at the same time that, like, reggae is, like, having some of its most, you know, pop culture moment, and they're parallel. They're not, like, they don't cross over really at all, which is weird.
Yeah, you have 1977, the Eagles put out Hotel California.
Yeah.
The absolute
like,
peak of pop, of a rock band doing a pop reggae song.
I mean, even to the point, like, Bob Marley's already had his biggest hits, right? Like, all of his biggest hits.
Yeah.
By this point. Like, Exodus comes out in 77, and that's not even his first big record. That's just, like, the one I think people tend to go back to now. It might have been the best selling at the time, but, like, yeah. He already had Catch a Fire in 73, you know. Natty Dread was 74. So, yeah. Actually, everything after, I mean, the stuff after is, like the 80s stuff is still pretty well regarded. But he's already past his peak by 79. And it's just very funny to me that they don't overlap at all. Like, the current reggae Jamaican artists are not overlapping with the two-tone artists, because the two-tone artists are borrowing from older ska and older, more traditional stuff. So that, like, you know, your Desmond Deckers, your Toots, and, like, all those people, they've had their peak a long time ago, and they're just redoing it for the younger crowd, because what they grew up with too. Yeah, just very funny to, like, have these, like,
yeah,
parallels that do not interact, yet they come from the same source.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jamaica wasn't making ska anymore.
No, Jamaica was fully into reggae by 79.
I mean, they're moving on. They're moving on to
dub,
to dance hall, to lovers rock. You know, it's not. They're moving. Jamaica, like, was always changing, and I think it's probably such a, like, small scene. Like, I think it's just, like, a case of somebody starts doing something different, and you got to compete, and, you know, so there's definitely a lot of, like, one-upping each other and kind of developing, and it's a lot of the same people playing on those records. So it's like, if somebody's playing, oh, we started doing this kind of rhythm, then, like, I'm just going to do that on the next thing I do, you know, with the next person that I'm recording with.
Yeah, because even if you, like, think of Jamaica today and the type of music that's coming out of Jamaica today, like, I feel like if you gave them something that was pulling more from old school ska and reggae, they'd be like, what are you doing? This is old. What are you doing? like, weird. I mean, now it's, like, so different. But yet those, like, strokes are still there, you know? That's, like, the defining thing. But, yeah, it is funny. Maybe it's because it's a different crowd, obviously. Different people making this music. You know, these are white kids and, like, second-generation immigrant kids putting this together. And so much of that other stuff is like, oh no, they're all Jamaican people making Jamaica, you know, still live in Jamaica, you know, making music. So yeah, that is interesting.
So, like I said, it's one of the best records that I have so many complaints about. Like, and I really do like this record. I do think it's a really good record.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and it's a record that I think I can recommend easily.
Oh yeah.
With no qualifiers even. Like, I wouldn't put my own baggage on it. Like, if I was to tell somebody, hey, you should listen to the Specials, like, I wouldn't be like, you know, actually the Specials aren't as good as the Beat. I'd be like, no, you should listen to the Specials because they're really important. This is a massive band and they're really, really good. And they do something that is unique to them. They do have a dynamic that is specific to the Specials that the other two-tone bands don't exactly have.
Yeah.
They all kind of had their own specific qualities and dynamics. Because I don't think the Selector have the same, you know, they have two people screaming at each other.
Yeah. And there are two guys singing in the Beat, but, like, Dave's singing, like, 75% of the time, and then Roger's, like, toasting. and
Yeah.
doing some like ad libs, but he's not doing he has a couple songs on his own, but yeah, everybody's dynamic is different. Madness felt like the most like, I don't know. Madness is the band I know the least amount. I know they were a London ska band, which made them a little bit different from the Coventry ska bands.
Yeah, makes them more corporate.
Yeah, they were a little bit more, posh. Not really, but like they weren't as blue collar as the Coventry bands, the Specials and the Selector and the Beat. They're not from Coventry, but they're still Northern England, I think. I think Birmingham, is that where they're from, I think? But yeah, because it was like, who was the other? It was Bad Manners, was like the other London ska band. I remember we did the Beat record or the Selector record. One of those records we did. They were talking about the differences between the scenes at the time, and the London ones were mostly white guys, and the northern ones were actually interracial bands.
Yeah.
Let's do some aftermath. So they would release a second album called More Specials in 1980, and they would then break up in 1981, mainly due to Terry Hall, Neville Staple, and Linville Golding saying, "We're done. We want to leave," and the rest of them being like, "What?" Confused as to why they were leaving. We're not quite sure. So Horace Panter, Jerry Dahmers, and I don't know why I wrote last names down, like I was going to remember everybody's first name, and John Bradbury all decide to continue under the name The Special, aka, and they released in the studio in 1984, and then Hall, Staple, and Golding, they formed Fun Boy 3, who is just more of a pop band. They're not really doing the two-tone thing anymore. Panter and Bradbury also joined General Public, which was Roger and Dave from The Beat. And I think there's even another band that there's people from in there too. It was kind of funny. I was like reading about that, and I was like, the whole point of General Public was to pay less people. That's what Dave and Roger said. They're like, we broke the Beat up because we wanted more money for ourselves, and then they bring in all these other people.
Oh, it's Dexys.
Dexys, right?
Yeah, is the other band.
I mean, maybe they were just paying them like a, session musician fee.
Yeah, they're not getting a cut.
Yeah. And then several of them would go on to do some solo records on their own and lead their own groups. And then they would reunite to play with Desmond Decker on his album King of Kings in 1993. They are the backing band of that record. Desmond sings on it. And they would stay together. They would release another album called Today's Specials in 1996, Guilty Till Proved Innocent in 1998, Skinhead Girl in 2000, then The Conquering Ruler in 2001. They take a pretty big gap in the 2000s. Jerry Dahmers gets kicked out at some point, and they continue on without him. And then they release Encore in 2019 and Protest Songs 1924 through 2012 in 2021. Rico Rodriguez would pass away in 2015, and Terry Hall would pass away in 2022. And then the Specials would cease to be. With Terry Hall's passing, they were just like, we're done. We're not going to go without him. Which is, I do find funny, because they did go without him for a long time. He was not in all those Specials records. So it's kind of a weird, like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if Jerry's still out, or was still out at the end there. But there was definitely some conflict in there, because Jerry was like, felt like he got kicked out of his own band, because he formed the band. And they like continued on without him at some point. But they have way more albums than I thought they did. I know nothing about any of those 90s records. Like, I don't know if they're any good. I tried to listen to Encore when it came out, because I was like, hey, a new Specials record? And I just did not like it. So I don't know that there's anything in their catalog that, beyond the first two records, that I feel like is essential listening. I don't know if there's anything else that people really love.
In the Studio is, I think, decently regarded, but it does definitely seem like a case of you're going to have to listen to this as if it's a different band.
Yeah. I mean, I just looked at the lineup for Encore. It's only three of the members in that one. Linville Golding, Terry Hall, and Horace Panter. So Jimmy wasn't even in that one. Or that was Protest Songs, actually. So there, at some point, Jerry gets like pushed out of the band. But then it's only like three of them, which is funny, because even when Jerry was still in the band, there were more than those three. Well, maybe not. Roddy Byers, Neville Staple, Horace Panter. Or Jimmy's not on that one either. Okay, so yeah, they do have a little bit of a messy discography when it comes to who's in the band when, but yeah. Well, did we win?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Despite all of my complaints.
It's weird because it's like, yeah, we're complaining a lot, but let's do ratings right now. I'm still giving it like 5 stars. I think it's that important of a record that it actually gives it another boost. It's funny. Yeah.
I think in terms of like pure enjoyment, it's probably like a 4.25. I would be like, I would be tempted to give it kind of an extra half a point of just like, it's so important. Like, I mean, and in terms of like cultural importance, yeah, it's like a 5-star record. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, like I truly would recommend this record to anyone.
Right.
Like, I don't care what kind of music you like. I would say give this a chance. And I would say that about this record more than I would say that about The Beat. Because I do feel like The Beat is more specialized in my interest. At least their truest ska record, the first record.
Yeah.
Special Beat Service, there's so much like new wave and just solid pop to that record that I think you could make a pretty good case to recommend that to most people. But it's so much less important culturally that it doesn't have as much like weight to it. This record has so much weight to it. It's just such an important, iconic record that it truly is a record everyone should hear or know something about.
Yeah, you're right. It's a record that I would give to someone who even actively says they dislike ska, because those people are out there. There are so many people who like outright dislike ska, and I get it. Like, I get what people don't like about, and usually when they say that, they're talking about third wave mainly, and all of its following artists. I bet if you give someone the Specials record who doesn't like ska, they might still like the record. Like, you have a higher chance of someone liking this record who doesn't like any other ska. I also think that people, if you give them like traditional Jamaican ska, they would probably like that too. If they like reggae enough, you'll like traditional ska too. It's very similar. But yeah, the third wave ska kind of gave ska a bad rap. If you really think about it, the bad bands.
It's the source of the mozzarella sticks meme.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perpetual bane of the genre.
Yeah, it's the child of the legacy stars that just kind of like, oh man, you really messed up the whole thing we had going on here. It's the Chet Hanks of the ska family. Yeah, I guess that'll do it for us though. I think it's a good record, and it has issues, but I overlook those issues when I listen to it because it's a fun record to listen to.
I think you do probably more than I do.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, probably. But I also think I'm just a hair more into ska than you in general.
Maybe.
We tend to like the same ones. We tend to find the same ones annoying. I think that's more important.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very agreed upon what is not good.
Yeah, and then just what we do like varies depending on record to record, but yeah. Well, that wraps up SKAUGUST for 2025. Yeah, we decided we don't need to do 3 weeks. We don't need to do a month. We've never done a month, I don't think. So it's good. It's good. I think we're going to do this for Halloween as well. We're just going to each take a turn. And I think we're going to do the year attempt for that one. So be on the lookout for that. But we will have our 350th episode before we get to the Halloween Spectacular stuff. So we got some time until then. Thank you for listening. You can follow us on all forms of social media at PunkLottoPod. Our email address is punklotopod@gmail.com, and our voicemail line is 202-688-PUNK. Dylan, where can we follow you online?
You can find me at Major Awards Band on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Husker Dylan, pretty much everywhere, though I'm mostly using Instagram for my personal stuff. I don't use my personal Twitter and Blue Skies all that much. Most of my shit posting fits on the band page anyway. If it's too weird for the band page, it's an inside thought.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.